We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Aleph in Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf 7a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara brought the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that if the Sotah has merits, that is not going to stop the bitter waters from testing her, because if that did stop the test from being accurate, then people would challenge the results in situations of earlier Sotas. And so the Gemara asks on Rabbi Shimon because there's a brisa that brings from a pasuk, from a drasha, that if there are Edom that are far away that know that she committed adultery, so there the waters don't test as well, and that also should challenge the integrity of the results of earlier situations of Sotah. And so the Gemara answers to that, Yesh lo Edom b'medinas hayom lo shchich. In a situation where there are Edom far away that know what happened, that's not a common situation, and therefore that is not something that Rabbi Shimon worries about. Rashi explains, Lo shchicha v'lo maski inshi adatayu lemechshedinu l'tahoros b'achi. People aren't going to think, in the case of earlier sotas, that maybe those tests weren't accurate because there were Edom in Medinas Hayom. That's not a common scenario. And Rashi notes, V'hadashani le'el Rabbi Shimon midazuchus lo tala Edom lo tala. Now what about what the Gemara said earlier? The Gemara earlier had answered this question by saying that according to Rabbi Shimon, since the woman's merits, they don't protect, or they don't stop the waters from testing her, so to Edom don't stop the waters from testing her, and Rabbi Shimon is consistent. Nothing stops the waters from testing, but what we said that earlier, Misham Dakati lo Kaimal and Durasha Daikra, that's because we didn't yet know about the fact that this was learned from a drasha. Once we know over here that it's learned from a drasha, so we assume that Rabbi Shimon agrees that if there are Edom in Medinas Hayam, so then the waters will not test her. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ketzad Osa Los. So what is done for her? This is talking about a situation where the wife was warned and then she went into seclusion with the man. So now the Mishnah is explaining the rest of the process. Molicha lebezin sheba oso malkam. He brings her to the court in that area. Umosrin lo shnei talmidei chachamim. And then we give him 2 talmidei chachamim to escort them. They're going to the Beis HaMikdash. Shema yavo ala baderech. And the reason why there are 2 talmidei chachamim escorting them is that we want to prevent that he will not have relations with her on the road, because again, at this point in time, the husband is right now usher to his wife, who has to drink the bitter waters in Yerushalayim. Rashi says, at this point in time, they have to give her to drink in Yerushalayim, bebezin agadol, at the bezin agadol, kidul kamon, as we will say later on. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ba'alo nemon aleha, the husband is trusted with her, we trust that he will not have relations with her, and therefore there's no need for escorts. And the Gemara says, Trei v'iyu. So it says in the Mishnah that you have 2 people accompanying them, 2 Talmidei Chachamim, and also the husband. Hatalasa, that makes 3 people. Leima Messiah Leila Rav. And the Gemara says, let us say that this supports the opinion of Rav. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, because Rav Yehuda said that Rav says, Lo shanu ela be'ir. That this halacha, this is talking about the halachas of yichud, that's only true in a city. Avol bederech, but if they're on the road, like in our case in the Mishnah, adi ika shlosha. So then you need 3 people. If you don't have 3 people, then you can't trust the situation, meaning in situations of yichud. Rashi says, Lo shanu haditanan bekiddushin avol isha misiachedes im shnei anoshim. It says in the Mishnah and the Kiddushin that a woman is allowed to be in seclusion with 2 men. That's what we say in the city, says Rav. In the city, she's allowed to be in seclusion with 2 men, but in the derech, on the road, so then you need 3 people. And the reason is, the reason why you need 3 people on the road is because maybe one of them will need to use the bathroom. And then it will come out, if you only had 2 people, it will come out that there will be seclusion. One person will be secluded with this woman, and then you'll have a problem. And so that's why you need 3 people when they're on the road. That is not a concern when you're in the city. When they're in the city, so then she's allowed to be Mesiachedes, she's allowed to have Yichud with 2 men. And Rashi explains, Shema Yitztarech Hachanami, here all say the same thing. Hoalu Shneim Asurin Ba, since both of them are Asur to her, Lo Sagi betray, it's not enough with 2 people. Shema Yitztarech Habalo Shliach Bezin Lenakavav, maybe one of them, let's say the husband of the Shliach Bezin, is going to need to use the bathroom, and then you're going to have a problem of Yichud, and so that's why we need 3 people in the Mishnah. This seems to be a support for what Rav said. And the Gemara says, no, that's not what's going on over here. Hachainu time over here has nothing to do with what Rav said. Here, the reason why we need 2 Talmidei Chacham is ki heichi de lahave oleh sahadis. The reason is because we need to have witnesses, meaning to say, let's say they do have relations, now we'll have witnesses to that effect, and then they won't give her to drink from the bitter waters. And the Gemara continues, Talmidei Chachamim in Kuli Almalo. It sounds like from the Mishnah that the only people that are allowed to escort them are Talmidei Chachamim, but not regular individuals. Leima Messiah le'idach to Rav. And the Gemara says, let us say that supports the other statement of Rav. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, because Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, Lo shanu ela kasherin. It's only true when you're talking about kasherin. Aval perutzin, but let's say you're talking about a situation of yichud, and the people are not kosher, the people are not trustworthy individuals, they're perutzin. So afilu asar and amilo, so even if you're going to go into seclusion with 10 men, that's also going to be a problem. And Rav continues, Ma'isa Haya, there was V'otziyua Sarah B'mita, and there were 10 people. They took out a woman in a coffin, meaning they were pretending that she had died, and it was all for the purpose of arayas. And so that's what's going on over here as well. The reason why they have to be Talmidei Chachamim is then we would have a problem of yichud, even if you have 3 people, or even if you have more than 3 people. And the Gemara says, no, that's not the reason why they need to be Talmidei Chachamim. Hacha Hainu Taima, here the reason why they need to be Talmidei Chachamim is the Yadi Lasri Ebe, is that only Talmidei Chachamim will know how to warn him properly. Rashi says the Yadi Lasri Ebe v'lomar lo min haTorah k'shaino ish menuka me'avon sheba aleh mishenesra olav ein hamayim bodken es ishto. If they're Talmidei Chachamim, they'll be able to tell him that min haTorah, if the husband is not clean from sin, meaning they had relations after she was already osred him, so then the waters will not properly test his wife. And we will read the earlier Rashi as well. Again, Rav said, we only learned that a woman is allowed to have yichud, is allowed to be in seclusion with 2 men. Again, that's only by ksherin, but by prutzen, even 10 people are going to be a problem. And again, we brought the incident, there was a story where 10 people brought out an Eishes Ish, chutz le'ir b'mita. They used a coffin to take her outside of the city, b'chezkas mesas, as if she was dead, l'kal kalima, and the purpose was for the purposes of arayas. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, Rav Yehuda Omer Bala v'chul. Yehuda said that her husband is believed. There does not need to be anybody that is escorting them. And the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Rav Yehuda Omer Bala Nemon. Rav Yehuda says her husband is believed, Mikal v'chomer. And the reason why he's believed is we make the following Kal v'chomer. Uman nida she bekares Bala Nemon alef. By a nida, so by a nida, the punishment is kares if the husband is with the nida. And there we say the husband is trustworthy. There doesn't need to be anybody who's watching. So sotah shehi belav, so sotah, which is not even kares, it's only a negative commandment. Lo kol shekain, isn't it certainly true that her husband should be believed? There's no need for anyone to escort her. We believe a husband and a wife together all the time, even when the wife is a nida. So the same thing should be true when the wife is a sotah. But the Rabbanan, he hanosenes, we actually can make that prove the other direction. Nida de kares chamirle, because nida is a punishment of kares, so it's strict to him, and therefore we trust him. Umehemen, that's why he's believed. Sotah de lav, but sotah, which is just a negative commandment, lo chamirle, it's not so strict to him. V'lo mehemen, and therefore he's not trusted, and that's why we do need people to escort them. Rabbi Yehuda mikal v'chomer ma'isila, but the Gemara asked, does Rabbi Yehuda really bring his proof from a kal v'chomer? Rabbi Yehuda mikroi ma'isila, but we have another source which says that Rabbi Yehuda has psukim to support the idea that the husband brings his wife alone. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, v'hevio ish es ishto el hakohen, it says that the husband brings his wife to the kohen. Min haTorah ha'ish mevi es ishto, so mido raisa, the husband can bring his wife. There doesn't need to be anybody to escort them. Avalamru chachamim, but the chachamim said, Mosrin lo shnei talmidei chachamim, that we give him 2 talmidei chachamim, shema yavo aleh baderech. Otherwise, we're afraid maybe he'll have relations with her on the road. Rav Yossi says, Ba'ala nemon aleh mikal v'chomer. Her husband is trusted from the following kal v'chomer. Uman nida she bekares ba'ala nemon aleh, by a nida, where the punishment is kares, her husband is trusted with her. Sotah she belav, by a sotah, where it's a negative commandment, lo kol shekain, certainly shouldn't the husband be trusted with her. Amru lo, they said to him, lo imamrit benida shekain yesh laheter. You can't bring a proof from nida, because by a nida there's an eventual heter. She's not going to be a nida forever. Tomar besota, whereas you can say by sota shein laheter, could come to a situation where she'll never be mutter to him. V'yomer ma'im genuvim yimtiku, and the pasuk says that the stolen waters are sweet, meaning to say here there's more of a suspicion that maybe they will engage in prohibited activities. The Gomer, etc. That's from the pasuk. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and the brayso concludes that Rabbi Yehuda says, Min haTorah ha'ish mevi es ishto el hakohen. Mido raisa, the husband alone brings his wife to the kohen, and we see from this source again that it comes from psukim, and Rabbi Yehuda brings the pasuk. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Vehevi ha'ish es ishto, that the husband brings his wife. Amar lahu kal v'chomer bereisha uparchua v'hadar amar lukra. So the Gemara answers the question by saying, originally Rabbi Yehuda told them a kal v'chomer, but then they refuted the kal v'chomer, and so then Rabbi Yehuda brought his proof from a pasuk, and that explains the contradiction within Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara asks another question on the brayso. Rabbi Yehuda hainu tanakam, isn't Rabbi Yehuda saying the exact same thing as the brayso? They both bring the same pasuk, and they say the same thing. And the Gemara answers to that, there is a difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama, Aval Omru, because the Tanakama concluded with the statement Aval Omru. That refers to the fact that the Chachamim said, even though the pasuk says that they don't need anyone to escort them, but Aval Omru Chachamim, Mosrin lo shnei talmidei chachamim, the Chachamim said that we have to give them talmidei chachamim to escort them, and on that point Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hayumalin Osala Bezdin Hagadol Shab Yerushalayim. They would bring her up to the great court in Yerushalayim, Uma'aymin Oleh, and then they would instill fear in her. They would try to get her to admit in case she did in fact commit adultery. Kederach Shema'aymin Al Eidin Nefashos. In a similar way to the way they try to scare witnesses in capital cases, they want to make sure that these witnesses are testifying and telling the truth. V'yomer lo, and they say to her as follows, Biti harbe yayin osa, my daughter, there's a lot that wine can cause. Don't worry if you sinned because of wine, that's common. Harbe schok osa, and there's a lot that acting in a light-hearted manner, it can cause these things to happen. Harbe yaldas osa, acting in a childlike manner. Harbe shchenim haroim osid. Also, if you have bad neighbors, it can cause things to happen. Asay l'shmo hagadol shenichta b'kedusha shelo yimchal amayim. You should admit what happened because we don't want his great name, meaning the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is written in holiness. We don't want it to be erased on the waters because they would erase the name of Hashem in the waters that they would give her to drink, and therefore they would tell her, admit to what happened, and then you won't have to drink from the waters, and we won't have to erase the name of Hashem. V'yomer lefaneh devarim she'ena kedai l'shoman, and we say things to her that really she shouldn't really be fit to hear them. He v'chomesh bachas beisavia, he and her entire family, meaning to say, we say that there were other great people who sinned, and we mention these great people from the Torah who sinned and that they admitted to their sins, and even though she's not really on their level, but we say these things in order to get her to admit. And the Mishnah continues, Imamra, if she says Tameya, if she says that I am Tameya, she admits to it. So Shoveres Ksuva V'yotzes. So then she writes a shover for her Ksuba, meaning she writes a receipt that says that she's not entitled to her Ksuba because she committed adultery, and she goes out. And the Mishnah continues, V'imamra Tahora Ani, and if she says that I am pure, that I am innocent, Ma'alin Osal Shara Mizrach, we bring her up to the eastern gate, Shal Pesach Shar Niknor, which is opposite the gate of Niknor, Shesham Mashkenes HaSotos, U'metaranes HaYolados, U'metaranes HaMitzorayin. It's over there that we give the sotas to drink. It's over there that we do the purification process for a woman who gives birth, and it's also over there that we do the purification process for a mitzora. Rashi says, L'shar Mizrach, we bring her to the eastern gate, Shar HaChitza, and that's the outer gate, Shabo Nechnasan L'Harabais, it's the gate that you enter the Temple Mount. Umisham L'shar Niknor, Hu Shar Elyon Shebechoma, Shebein Ezras Yisrael, Ezras Nashim, and then Shar Niknor refers to the gate that is between the Ezras Yisrael and the Ezras Nashim, Shasham Mashkenes HaSotos, it's in that area where we give the sotas to drink. The reason is that area of the Shar Mizrach, it doesn't have the holiness of the Azara, Ove Chalal Ose Hashar, meaning the thickness of that entryway of that gate, that does not have the Kedusha of the Azara. And the reason why is because the Mitzoras would come there and they would put their hands there. Part of the process of the purification was they would enter their hands into that area. They couldn't put their hands in an area that had Kedusha's Azara, Liten Midam Hashem Al Bo and Yada, because they would put the blood on their fingers. Mechusar Kippurim and Mechusar Kippurim shenichnas la'azar b'kares. Really, Mechusar Kippurim that enters the Azar really gets kares, so the Mitzorah is not allowed to go there. Lafikach lo ketshua. That's why they didn't make that area holy. Sheyuchal lamod v'chalal ashar. That way he can stand in this area of the gate. Shem hayakoin motzias dam ha'ashem chutz la'azara, because the kohen also is not allowed to bring the blood of the carbon asham inside the Azara, because hareu nifsal biyotzi. That would be possible because it left the area of the Azara. Lafikach tzarech lahachnas yadu lasoch chalal ha'azara. Therefore, he enters his hands into this open area of the Azara, ubias miksa shorachman. If he's just going to enter partially, not fully enter, so then the Torah allowed it, and so that's what they did for the Mitzorah. And again, it's that same area where we are mitarin esayoladas, we purify those who gave birth, and we give the sota to drink. Nicanor Adam Gadol Haya, Nicanor was a great person. Vehevi Dalsos Nechoshas from Alexandria Shal Mitzrayim. He brought these copper doors from Alexandria, Laoso Shar for that gate, Venasu Bonisim, and there were miracles, Kedetnan B'Seder Yuma, that's learned in Yuma, V'Nikro Al Shemo, and therefore this gate, these doors were called by his name. And the Mishnah continues, V'kohen oches bivgadeho, and the Kohen grabs her clothing. Im nikru, v'im niframu, niframu. If they tear a little, they tear a little. If they tear a lot, they tear a lot. Adshu megales liba, until he uncovers her heart, her chest. V'soser esar, and he undoes her hair. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im haya liba noya, if her chest is nice, lo haya megalehu, he doesn't uncover it. V'im haya sara noya, and if her hair is nice, lo haya soser, he doesn't undo it. If she's wearing white, she wears black instead. If she's wearing golden adornments, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Zayin Amud Beis.